Tana is going to talk today about the summer slide and not letting your kids get behind in reading over the summer. So looking forward to this one. There you go. All
Yes.
yours.
Yeah. So, I'll start with what is the summer slide. So basically, the summer slide is a regression or loss of learning in skills that happens over the summer in those months while kids are not in school. It's not necessarily a huge regression that takes place, but as kids spend more time kind of in a lax, non engaged state over the summer, like playing video games or just watching more TV, scrolling through social media. They're not accessing a lot of those reading skills that they've practiced over the course of the school year. So those skills are kind of set on the back burner and they don't get a lot of application and practice over the summer. So we see a little bit of a backward slide over the summer when they're not using those skills. So for new readers, that can look like a loss of recognition sounds, letter sounds, spelling skills, things like that. And for higher level readers, like our middle school age kids or even upper elementary, it can be like the regression of the ability to even analyze a text or think critically about it, and or even comprehension. Can you read a whole thing or a whole story and really understand what's going on? So a lot of those skills are not practiced super heavily over the summer, and so that's what we call the summer slide. They go backwards. They lose those skills over the summer, and it happens every single year in between those grade levels. And so sometimes it can be absolutely preventable when we, as parents at home, actively take steps, to try to prevent that. So there are some ways, there are some really good ways to prevent that. So, and I'm speaking specifically to just reading skills because, reading is like a foundation of all the things that we do. We have to have reading skills, or we can't do other things and focus and participate in life. So it's kind of important. So my very first, I say this to my parents all the time. My very first tip for that is to just have them reading something. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as they are engaged with a language rich environment. So 20 minutes a day makes a big, big difference in maintaining and growing in reading and vocabulary over the summer. It can be super simple, like scheduling it into a routine of the day, make it a family event if possible, um, and just have them reading anything: magazines, graphic novels, comic books, picture books with, smaller words, the back of the cereal box. It really doesn't matter what it is. I mean, I grew up reading the back of the cereal box, so that's kind of my, I throw that in there, but any signs as you're just driving down the road, just point them out and have your kids really reading and paying attention to the language around them. And that helps them to engage with words and start investigating them and kind of keep it in the forefront of their brain as we're just making our way through the summer. My second best tip for that is to let the kids choose what they want to read. Um, what I also tell my parents is that we have three levels of reading. We have the independent level, and at this level, the child it's easy for them. They're reading fluently. They pick a book. It's something that they're really interested in, and you really don't have any pushback from the kids when they're reading at this level. It's enjoyable for them. The second level is the instructional level. This is typically where they stay during the school year, when the teachers are pushing them, when we're pushing them to build those skills. This is the level where they're gaining new skills in reading and building on top of those layers. And then we have the third level is the frustration level. And this is the level where the child is unable to read most of what is on the page in the story. I would say probably more than 70% of it they don't understand, or they can't recognize, they cannot read. So this is problems with decoding skills and multisyllabic words and really applying those skills. So that may look like them shutting down, and this is hard, and really pitching a fit like, this is stupid, I don't want to. And you get a lot of those avoidance type behaviors at the frustration level. They become super disinterested in reading. And when we leave kids at that level, that's when we lose readers. That a lot of times and really sadly happens around the middle school level, which is the grade level I teach, because we're constantly having to put disinteresting text and things they don't want to read in front of them, and they're long and they're complex and they don't have the skills to really read them. And so kids disconnect from reading. They could have been an avid reader from preschool all the way up through upper elementary. And then when we get to them, because we have to, it's part of our curriculum, there's not a lot of reading for enjoyment. I'm sad to say. Then we get disconnected readers. So we don't want to leave them like that over the summer either. So letting them choose what they want to read, it doesn't matter what, as long as they're reading something. So take them to the library, take them to the bookstore, let them ask questions let them experience new genres they've never read before, and things like that. And that kind of reduces the frustration and keeps the motivation up for what it is that they want to read. The third thing is to keep it fun, and please, please, please don't make it a chore. Not like a checklist. Like you have to get your reading done today. It's supposed to be, we don't want them at the frustration level. We want them at the interest level, at that independent level of reading over the summer. So don't make it a chore. Let them, include it in other things that you do just as part of a daily life routine. Let your kids be involved in meal planning. Let them help you make the list. Go to the grocery store, make the plans for the week, read the boxes at the store so that they're getting that language interaction with words and labels. If you're going out to eat, let them look at the menu, let them read the menu, let them order for themselves, and then you can kind of support that as they need. You can make it a competition, maybe, like how many words can each family member read in 10 minutes at their own level. Keep it fun. Charts, stickers, all of that kind of stuff to kind of keep them motivated and interested. Go to the library. This is a great one. When my son was little, we went to the library. We picked a day, and that was library day. And we went every single week in the summer, and we would walk out with a stack of 20 to 25 books. And I just let him pull off whatever. He didn't pay attention to what he was pulling, but he would pull whatever books off, and we would check them out. We take them home, and we read through all of those books. Make it a routine. Go visit the library. I feel like the library is not visited enough anymore because of online things, but the library is still a wonderful place to go. They have so many fun activities over the summer for kids. They have guest speakers, they have live exhibits, they have read alouds, they have all kinds of things and engaging things for the kids to do. They have game rooms for the olders, middle school, upper, and teens. They have really, really interesting things for them, interactive for them too. So it gives them time not only to visit and be in the community, and to go experience the library, but also it gives them time to interact with other kids. They could sit down and read with other kids. They are talking about books that they're reading, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. And then they're just immersed in the world of reading. So it keeps it exciting and it keeps them interested. As a parent, you can be a reading role model yourself. Be a reader as a parent, whether it's physical books, ebooks, audiobooks, magazines. The list goes on and on. Whatever that you decide to read, do it in front of your kids. Because if they see you reading, and the chances are that they're going to want to read too. And then talk about what it is that you're reading. This has the same effect on people as it does talking about your favorite TV shows or the latest, greatest movie, right? We have those conversations all the time about visuals and those kinds of things. Like, hey, did you check out the new season of whatever, insert title here, book talks have the same impact on people. And so if you're talking about what you're reading with your kids, then they get interested in it too. My son is 16, and he doesn't always ask me questions, but when I get into like a season of where I can read and I'm reading a new book every 2 weeks, he starts asking questions and he's like, "What are you reading this week? What's that book about now?" And so he starts getting curious about it too. And he's not really an avid reader anymore, but they do. They start asking questions because they see what is mom and dad doing, and they want to know too. So um, talk to them, have those book talk conversations, and they can that helps to pique interest too and keep it going. Um, read to them, read to them, especially to the littles. If you have younger kiddos, or even just beginning readers, they can get so much out of just listening to you read. They can listen to your intonation. They can listen to the way you're pronouncing words. They can listen to the rate at which you're reading, where you're pausing at punctuation. What does that ending punctuation sound like? They can gauge your interest. Is your interest in the book too? And so then that might pique their interest. If they're hearing that you're excited about it, they might be excited about it. This is really, really important for younger readers. Um, when if they can't even if they can't fully read a book by themselves, they can't sit down with it. It could be a picture book, or with even just sight words in it. Even if they cannot fully read that book on their own, if you are sitting down and you're reading it with them, they're picking up, they're looking, and they're doing it too. And so reading helps. I mean, my son had a favorite book that we read, oh gosh, probably 500 times. And that's really exaggerating, but it sure felt like that. And it was just his favorite. Yeah, he wanted to read it almost every night. And so we would sit down with our giant stack of books, and that would be the first one we would sit down and read. And he would sit down in my lap, and we'd have the book open in front of us. And he was not reading it, but just me reading it. And we would go. And then he got to a point where I read, mom, I read. Okay. I'd let him read. And he wasn't really reading, but he had memorized the story and the order of the story because we had read it so often. And then one day he just got to a point where he was actually tracking and pointing to the words on the page, and he put two and two together eventually, and so he started reading it too. So reading to your kids is super duper important, especially in those younger ages. They really they're super absorbent. They absorb everything, and those are the best times for them to just take it all in, and then eventually you'll see the output of that too. And then I think the last thing that I would say is to try is to set some good summer reading goals. Um, Not making it a chore, but being careful with that because that's kind of a fine line. But just setting a goal for them, making it attainable, let them set their own goals for reading. Small, tiny challenges would be good, like a number of pages. I'm going to read 3 pages today, or I'm going to read 10 pages today, whatever is attainable for them. Or maybe I'm going to read so many books by the end of the summer. I have a gigantic book stack myself, and I keep adding to it, but my goal is to read at least 5 of those books out of that book stack by the end of the summer. And so you can do that with your kids too. And when they're achieving those goals, if they feel good about themselves, and so that's a good motivator too. So you can
Yeah.
prevent
I was
summer
going to say
slide,
that.
preventable.
Yeah. So do they still have those? When we were young, they used to have the read 100 books, you get a pizza kind of places. Do they still have
Yeah,
those things?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, you could do some research online, and I know a
Yeah.
lot of community type places do have those things. And I know that, our librarians, our school librarians, praise to you. Great, like that is a job, and
Yeah.
it's not just shelving books and checking them out. There is a science to being a librarian.
Yeah.
But our school librarians also they have summer reading challenges and summer reading programs and book lists and
Mhm.
all of those things I mean, they're a great resource too. So
Yeah.
They encourage, and the kids can win prizes over the summer just for reading
Yeah.
so many books off their book lists and all of that stuff. So
Yeah.
it's definitely worth researching.
Yeah.
And you know
Parents
what?
could probably make that up too if there isn't any
Yeah,
in their
right.
place. Hey, 30 books, you gotta whatever. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And we will take you to Raising Cane's or I don't know, whatever,
Right. Yeah.
McDonald's, it could just be whatever they like, but you can do that at home too. But you give me an idea. So I will go, I can curate one of those lists and post it on my website for any community or local places that have anything like that.
Yeah.
I will put that out there. That's a great idea.
And the other thing I found for the older ones, I was telling them earlier that my daughter had dyslexia, and we didn't know. So I homeschooled. So we did a lot of I taught him phonics, and then I taught him sight words. But I read to them every night. Probably my daughter was probably 12 by the time I stopped, and so we would just you had that little time together at night reading. And when they got older, we'd do read popcorn, where I'd read a page and she'd read a page, and I'd read a page and she'd read a page, and so it ended up being good teaching time for that. But the best thing I found, because she didn't want to read because it was hard, was we did a lot of books on tape. And the first book in a series, and maybe the second book in a series, are on tape or on CD or audio or whatever. But if you want to get through that third book in that series, you got to read it. And so she would go through the first or second books, and she loved stories. She still just loves stories. And so she would go through those first or second books, and she's like, well, I want to read, I want the next one. Where's the next one? Oh, honey, I'm sorry, it's not on tape. You're going to have to read it. And she's like, okay. And it might take her, a month to read it, but she would read it. And she finally, she got to the point where she was pretty good. It was hard when they were older, when she was older, and we'd have them, we were like scouts or something, we'd have them read out loud and go around the room and have them read out loud, so they're participating and stuff. That was hard for her, because reading out loud was she wasn't good at it. And
That's
so
scary.
yeah. And so I know that was something that happened, but I thought the fact that third or fourth book, sorry, honey, you're going to have to read them.
Tricky.
Yeah. You get those 7th and 8th graders, telling you that's a big thing, because if they're reading something that they want to read, then it makes a big difference.
That's a game changer. Yes. And I know that kids are tired of having text shoved in their face. You have to read this, and they're just not interested in it. And it has nothing to do with we try as teachers, we really try to choose things that can be interesting, and you're not always going to read something that you're interested in. And so we try to teach them that too, and build that in. Not everything you do in life is going to be super thrilling to you.
Yeah.
But you're going to have to read some boring things. But in reading those, not interesting
things too.
things,
Yeah.
you're still gaining knowledge from that. It may be a nonfiction text, and you're learning something about history that you didn't know before.
Yeah.
And so that there is a purpose to it. But kids
biographies are really good for that, especially well-written biographies, because they're fun. It's almost like a story.
Yeah, and learning about people is interesting. And actually reading more nonfiction texts or informational type text helps build the understanding of fiction more, because the kids are gaining that. They have then the background knowledge of a variety of topics to help them connect with a fiction story. And so reading anything informational is biographies, autobiographies, any just expository, anything. It helps them to build the fiction, and they can really engage in those deeper stories of fiction too.
Yeah, that's true. And that was something that we learned with the homeschooling, is it doesn't have to be an English textbook to read. You can read the science textbook. You can read the other textbooks, or you can read the biographies or whatever. You could read about snakes and cougars and all that stuff. You don't have to read about. And that's still getting the science, but you're also getting that reading part of it done too. Yeah,
and you can practice. It's so easy to spiral in. Even even if you're not an educator, I feel like it's easy for you as a parent to just kind of spiral in those skills, to have them just talking about it, even just, hey, can you tell me what you just read about? Like,
Yeah.
if I have never read that story before, how would you describe it to me? Kind of having those conversations with them. You don't have
Yeah.
to be a teacher per se, a certified anything to be able to say, or have those conversations with your kids about what they're reading.
Yeah. Or just, yeah, that's something that my husband reads a lot, and he tells me the story. I'm like, okay, now I don't have to read it.
Yeah, thanks. That's
But
like
yeah,
having your
right. I don't have time to
personal
read, so
audiobook.
but he does. He tells me, oh, this happened in this book, and this happened in this book, and
Yeah.
and the kids do that too because he does it, and
Mhm.
so
They're
it's
watching.
a
They
lot
watch
of it
all the
is
time.
modeling. Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah, very good, very cool.
Yes.
So we have over at your, I don't think I have, is my banner is not showing up. Where's my banner? Hold on a second. Let me see if I can get this to work. The over at the program scene source, right? Source. No source selected. That's why. The at the main event page, we have a breakout room for Tana, and we have a a, a booth, virtual booth for her which has the has all of her information on her camps. She's got a bunch of mini camps coming up, and so if people want to go over there and check that out, there's different camps over there and lots of stuff for the summer going on.
Mhm.
So that would be fantastic. And I'm going to take just a couple minutes break and then come back and start talking about other stuff. But thank you so much. We really appreciate your telling us about this stuff. I feel like it really helps parents to know that there's stuff that they can do. It's not going to be a lot of work.